Assassin's Creed is a series that's seen plenty of changes over the years, whether it be its historical settings, its gameplay systems, or its quality of writing. Yeah, that last one has completely fallen off a cliff. And one of the systems in the franchise, one of the core gameplay elements that drew many people to the series in the first place, was its unique movement system. Being one of the first games to truly incorporate what at the time was an up-and-coming French sport named Parkour, it led to a massively unique gameplay experience, allowing players to see aspects of historical cities never before seen. So since I've ranked just about every single aspect of these games, I figured it was about time I got around to having a look at the freerunning systems and see which one is the best. Before the video begins though, it'd really help me out if you could hit like, and also if you're new here, make sure to hit subscribe with post notifications turned on. Also, Twitter and Patreon links are in the description as per usual. And with all that being said, let's jump into ranking the Assassin's Creed parkour systems. Coming in last, probably to the surprise of absolutely no one, is the most recent movement system we've seen in these games, present in Origins, Odyssey, and from what we've seen, mostly unchanged in Valhalla. Now, as the title says, this video is me ranking the parkour systems in this series, so to be honest, it was kind of hard to even include these games, because basically, these three games don't have a parkour system. Sure, you can jump around rooftops, sure, you can climb buildings, but there isn't any type of engagement from the player to do these things. Since literally anything can be climbed in this world, the entire purpose of parkour, to find the quickest route possible, goes out the window, as the best option is always to simply hold down the left stick directly forward until you reach your destination. And this is especially a problem in Odyssey, considering it's physically impossible to die from fall damage, and at a certain point the player doesn't even have any fall damage. Besides from the fact that there's no incentive to even use the system, the mechanics themselves are fundamentally broken, thanks in large part to the underwhelming engine. Movement in general in these games has essentially no momentum, with each dull jump feeling clunky, and a lack of fluid transitions between animations leaves the game feeling far more like a 2D platformer as opposed to a fleshed out parkour focused open world. Coming in second to last here is a decision that some people might question, but hear me out. Yes, Syndicate and Unity are on the same engines. Yes, many of the animations of the two systems are the same, but when you engage in them, these two games have completely different parkour. As a matter of fact, Syndicate shares many of the issues that Origins and Odyssey face. Although Syndicate's redeemed with some of the decent animations carried over from Unity, Syndicate's parkour system is massively sluggish, with again a lack of flow between movements and any type of momentum. Each step feels far too heavy, and trying to fluidly move along the side of buildings is nearly impossible. As well as that, the system removed all semblance of risk versus reward, as the handholdy nature of the game leads to the player literally being unable to jump off buildings or fall to their death, removing one of the fundamental factors as to what made parkour enjoyable, balancing the efficiency of your movement with the possibility of massive health drops if you take a bad jump. This of course is all compounded by the existence of the rope launcher, which took so much focus away from the parkour in the game, removing any incentive for the player to even use the system and making exploring London feel like a mindless chore as opposed to an interesting task. Now this is where we reach parkour systems that I actually like. Well, like might be a strong word. This one I more tolerate. Assassin's Creed 3 marked a shifting paradigm in the series, and with it introduced an entire new engine for the next generation of these games. And although some aspects of the new engine were great, parkour was a fairly significant downgrade. The system still shares the base similarities visually with that of the Ezio games, however Ubisoft intended these games to have a much more flashy and visually impressive system. But these new flashy animations and this scramble system that they created ended in player control largely going out the window. Now, it's not like the player has absolutely no control of where their character goes, but due to the new mechanics for precision jumps, the games ironically became much less precise with their inputs. Essentially, the parkour was simplified, as it now only took one button to move through the somewhat disappointing cities of Boston, New York and Havana, and the one button system made it easier to accidentally run up a wall, jump out a tree or take the wrong path. Along with that, a lack of polish led to the systems specifically for Black Flag being fairly buggy, which causes near constant moments of annoyance that build up to create a feeling of frustration, especially when the issues break the immersion and momentum of a chase sequence. That being said, this system is by no means unplayable. It's functional enough to move around the cities, and to be fair, the new tree climbing system is very well optimized, particularly in Assassin's Creed 3. Plus, these games contain some fantastic parkour set pieces that can end up actually being the best moments of the player's playthrough. Again, when the system actually works. And here we reach the point where people are going to start getting mad, because yes, I do not think that the classic AC parkour system is the best in the series. However, there is a massive gap between the AC1 to Revelation system and the 3 to Rogue system. Being one of the most revolutionary systems in all of gaming, Assassin's Creed 1 through Revelations were the first games that truly embraced parkour. Crafted from the ground up, Ubisoft did no mocap for these games, which you can probably tell from the interesting running animation, and this allowed the player arguably the most freedom in the entire series. Without preset animations, the player could cancel out of moves, they could fully utilize all the space around them, and the precise inputs made a system that the player was in full control of at all times. There are a massive variety of options in every moment of gameplay, whether it be the climb leap, side eject, back eject, the vault from AC1, or using the hook blade in Revelations. It can be argued that these games too provide the best sense of risk versus reward, as if you're not focused or engaged in your movement, you have the potential to take one wrong jump and fall to your death. The whole system is also boosted by the worlds the game provides you, with all the areas of the Holy Land, Italy and Constantinople being built solely to provide for dynamic movement, with closely packed buildings and a seemingly infinite number of poles that you can jump along. These games have a solid foundation in every part of their gameplay, and the parkour is no different, being nearly impossible to truly criticize other than its somewhat clunky and ugly aesthetic. Yes, my only criticism of this entire mechanic is that it's not pretty. What can I say? I like style, as you can probably tell by my 3 hoodies and my 5 t-shirts that I wear on rotation. So once again, Assassin's Creed Unity comes out on top of one of these lists, and I've got to say that the more I talk about this game, the more my love for it just continues to grow. As someone who's always had a fair liking for Unity, this parkour system to me was the embodiment of what a parkour system should be. From the gorgeous animations, the perfect world, and the player control, it strikes a balance that's unmatched in the rest of the series. Being, in my opinion, the most engaging and difficult to master, the system brings back most of what was present in the early games, back ejects, side ejects, grab backs and the rest, but it adds a massively important element that puts it above those other games: verticality. The systems of parkour up, parkour straight and parkour down have been copied over in every game since Unity, but none of those games truly utilized it to its full potential the same way Unity did. That very simple dynamic of verticality adds an entire new dimension to the parkour that creates near endless opportunities for exploration and movement, as literally every jump you have to adjust your inputs and be aware of your surroundings as to not destroy your momentum or land in a massive crowd. Speaking of crowds, Unity's world is by far the best in terms of parkour, with the one-to-one recreation of Paris being perfectly cramped to allow for sizable jumps and rooftop riding, but still open enough to create a massive amount of variety in each parkour run. And I mean, considering France is the birthplace of parkour, this makes complete sense. I said earlier that Unity also contains the most difficult parkour system in the series, and this is the place that I have a slight criticism of it, because while there's such a massive variety of options, the game doesn't provide much direction for the player, reducing the accessibility to the wonders of this movement system. Take for example grab backs or rolls, two mechanics that make the system significantly more fun and immersive. Well, unfortunately, Ubisoft decided to never actually explain how these mechanics worked, leaving players to have to figure out on their own that they simply need to double tap B to perform these actions. This is a wider problem with Unity, but in my opinion it doesn't take away from the parkour system itself, because it's this lack of accessibility that makes the system so rewarding. It's one of the few Assassin's Creed gameplay elements that actually has a difficulty curve, as the average player who runs through the city simply holding the right trigger will never get the same experience or the same parkour runs as a player who puts hours into practicing each and every move. You only need to look at the likes of Leo K and Swifty Unknown to see the difference practice and knowledge can make, and as someone who finds many of these games to be generally far too easy and accessible, I feel it's nice to see a system with such a steep learning curve. Yes, you can argue that the classic system may be more consistent, but the fact of the matter is, no game has captured the essence of parkour as well as Unity. There's no other game where you can sit for hours on end simply moving around the world, not doing any particular objectives, but simply being creative, finding new and satisfying ways to push this system to its limits. Parkour is probably the gameplay element of Assassin's Creed that I like the most. It's one of the major reasons I was drawn to the series in the first place, finding it to be such a unique way to experience historical settings in a way no one has ever done it before. And whether you agree with my list or disagree, the franchise has without a doubt made a major impact on parkour's influence across the world. So I hope that as we move past Valhalla into whatever setting Ubisoft will bring us to next, that they'll return to their roots, that they'll make an effort to continue to innovate, and that they'll truly create a parkour system that brings us back to that surreal experience of jumping around rooftops in these historical settings, an experience that truly cannot be replicated in real life. Thanks for watching. If you did enjoy, like I said, it'd really be appreciated if you could hit like, and also if you're new here, make sure to subscribe with post notifications turned on if you want to see more content like this. Also, feel free to comment down below and tell me what you think of my list, what you think of my ranking. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know. And with all that being said, I've been Joe, aka FOUNDEDSCARAB, and I'll see you in the next one.